I get it. When you are working your butt off during the day and then coming home after work to family and responsibilities, it can feel impossible to add anything more to your plate. But that's exactly why the 5 productivity tips we're gonna cover in this video are so important. Because the reality is, you do have the time, even if it's extremely limited. Not only did I find the time, but I've also since helped thousands of people, including busy single parents and people holding jobs while studying for advanced degrees, do the same. So the question isn't if you can find the time, it's how. Starting with tip number 1, which is one of my best tips for getting more done. Have a shorter to-do list. But I know it's a lot easier said than done, which is why I've got a super simple exercise to help you do this right now. Get out a piece of paper and write out all the activities you're spending time on right now. Then evaluate them like this. If something doesn't have to be done, then delete it. Stop doing it. For example, the first time I did this, I realized maybe I didn't need to spend so much time cleaning my home. Now, don't get me wrong, because I can already hear my grandma's voice in my head. It is important, but I realized I didn't need to be cleaning so many times every month. And cutting back on that saved me at least a few hours every week. Next, look for anything on your list that needs to be done, but doesn't need to be done by you. For me, this included setting up my first website. I knew that an expert could do it a lot faster and better than me, so I delegated it by paying someone else to do it. This is one of the unexpected upsides to building your business on the side while working a busy job. You've got a bit more disposable income. Using it strategically can help you grow faster while making the most of your limited time. Because then, all you're left with are the only tasks that you actually need to do, your do list. And I bet you will be pleasantly surprised by how small your to-do list can really be. But you might be thinking, yeah, all this is good, but you're not telling me how you actually made 6 figures before you quit your full-time job. And you're right, this video is not about the strategy. If you want more details, I'll share a free training I have on that later in this video. Because in my opinion, nailing this piece, your time, first is way more important. Because once you use what we're covering in this video, you'll actually have the time and headspace to grow your business. Otherwise, you could have all the strategy in the world, but if you're not actually doing it, there's no point. In fact, that's what happened to me early on in my business journey. I was spending a lot of time overthinking and hyping things up so that I felt super overwhelmed and paralyzed instead of, actually getting things done. That's part of the reason I stayed stuck for so long, and I don't want that to happen to you. For example, I once spent about an hour preparing to record a video that ended up taking only about 10 minutes to actually record. Introvert problems. But thankfully, that's when I discovered tip number 2, learning to use gap time to essentially force myself to get more done. Think of gap time as time you'd normally waste, like your commute, lunchtime, and waiting at the doctor's office. So I started using that gap time to listen to courses, follow up with prospective clients, post social media content, and engage with potential clients. It might not seem like a big deal. It's just a few minutes here and there. But over time, it adds up. Not only that, but the beauty of this is that because you only have a set amount of gap time, you are forced to fit what you need to get done into it and thus get things done. So high five to that. But right about now is usually the point in a productivity-based video where some guru will tell you that you've gotta wake up early if you wanna build your business. Literally, almost nothing annoys me more. And I get it, people might say, if it helps Fortune 500 CEOs get more done, shouldn't it help you too? And listen, it might. But my beef with this unwisdom is that I tried it and it didn't work for me. Because I am a natural night owl. So I found that the earlier I woke up, the more tired I felt and the less I got done. That's why tip number 3 is about what works for you. Ask yourself, what works best with my workflow? Once I started looking at it this way, I stopped trying to change myself and my lifelong habits to fit some pre-made calendar. Instead, I figured out how to rearrange my schedule to fit my natural energy flow. To give you an idea, on weekends when my energy was high because I didn't have to go to work, I scheduled my mental heavy lifting. Stuff like coming up with content ideas and writing emails. Then on weekdays after work, when my energy was much lower, I scheduled the things that required less mental energy, like sharing the content I'd created during the weekend. But I know this is easier said than done, because sitting down to work isn't always as simple as just sit down and do the work, especially when TikTok exists. That's why, for this next tip, we are turning to science to help us get through it. You know how after you've been working on something for a while, you get in the zone? New research shows us that this is actually a psychological state that happens after your brain has a certain amount of dopamine built up, which makes you more focused and helps you get things done faster. But unfortunately, it takes a while before you can get into the zone because it takes time for that dopamine to build up. So tip number 4 helps you get into your zone faster by chunking your time. For example, if you have only 30 minutes after work, that's a 30-minute chunk where you can be focused on just one activity, because that's the key, where you are doing only one thing. Your phone isn't also playing a podcast and you're not hopping from one task to the next. Plus, it helps you cut through a lot of overwhelm because you are so focused. Like, I'm just gonna put my head down and create content for the next 30 minutes. And then you get it done. Personally, I prefer absolute silence when I'm doing this, but I know other people also prefer to play some lo-fi study music in the background. Whatever you need to serve as an additional signal to your brain that this is zone time. And there's one more really powerful benefit from working this way too. Because you are focusing on just one thing, there's no oscillating back and forth about what you should be focusing on. So you're not wasting time being overwhelmed or trying to figure out what to do. And bringing this all together is my final tip, which I give the most credit for being able to build my first online business to 6 figures before I quit my job. Because not only will it save you time, but it will also help you build your business faster. Win-win. So tip number 5 is that each month you choose just one goal in your business. And then that month you do only the things that move you forwards towards that goal. For example, let's say your first month's goal is to get your first paying client. Each item on your to-do list needs to move you forwards towards that goal. If it doesn't, it can wait until later. When you stay laser focused this way, you'd be amazed at how many of your to-dos melt away and how much faster you're able to make progress. For example, the first time I did this, I realized I didn't need to build a fancy email funnel or an opt-in to get my first client. So I stopped doing that, which saved me so many hours and helped me get my first client so much faster too. This is how you can create a buildup of momentum and growth in your business while also working a 9-to-5. Plus, you don't have to have tons of superhuman discipline or extra time to do it, because who does? What I hope you take away from this is that building your dream business is not easy, but it's absolutely doable. And it starts with focusing on quality over quantity. Now, if you'd like to know the exact framework I used to build my first online business to 6 figures before leaving my 9-to-5, I've got a great free training for you on it. In it, you will learn the best business model and strategy to use to build your business to replace your income before you turn in your notice. Plus, it'll also teach you how to think about your business and focus on what's important so that you can get the best results in the relatively fastest time. You can sign up for that training at luisazhou.com/masterclass.